Recap: a man and a woman wake aboard a silent starship to find the crew brutally killed by monstrous organisms created by a secret onboard experiment. As they search for an escape, they find lab records and recordings that reveal the experiment opened channels into something not entirely biological. The creatures bend reality, trigger visions, and use human memories against them. The pair must fight monsters, survive paranormal episodes, and uncover the experiment's purpose as the ship collapses around them. The ending leaves the line between survival and contagion terrifyingly uncertain. Chapter 1: Silent Wake. I woke to the metallic tang of blood and the hum of dying lights. At first I thought the ship had been struck, but then I saw hands twisted at impossible angles, faces frozen in a last, terrible surprise. The corridor smelled like iron and ozone. I moved on reflex, checked my suit, checked the rail, then heard the soft scrape of boots. She was there at the far end, leaning against a bulkhead, eyes wide and shaking. We didn't say our names at first. There was no time. We shared a look heavy with a single understanding: this ship had been slaughtered. We moved together, a small pair in a cathedral of death. Every door we opened widened the quiet laboratories, mess halls, a med bay overturned like a child's toy box. In each room the same answer: bodies, shredded uniforms, some of them with marks that weren't like any wounds I knew. Limbs bent where bones didn't have joints. Voices on the calm loop were nothing but static and a whisper that sounded like a warning and a laugh at once. Somewhere deeper the ship breathed differently. It was colder, and the air tasted wrong. We found the first sign of unnatural work: a sealed lab door with project ribbon painted over with warning glyphs and fresh scratches on the glass. Inside, something had struggled to get out. Chapter 2: The Records. We found logs and recordings in a lab that hadn't been listed on the manifest. The footage showed men and women in white coats arguing, spitting phrases that clung to the screen: adaptive cognition, neural scaffolding, cross-sensory integration. They were excited, then terrified. In a final clip, a lead scientist whispered, "It remembers what it sees. It learns shame." There were specimens in tanks, limbs folded like origami under translucent skin. Notes described an experiment to fold living tissue with simulated consciousness. The papers used clinical words, but the margins were stained and the handwriting jagged. Someone had written in a hurry, "It sings in the dark. It calls with the crew's names." That night, the lights in the lab went odd. Holographic displays bled into the walls and showed ghost images of people who weren't in the room. When I touched the console, I felt a whisper brush across my mind: a name, a face, a memory that wasn't mine. The woman stared at me when I pulled my hand back. "You're not alone in your head," she said softly. The idea crawled under my skin like cold water. Chapter 3: The First Night. We tried to stay in motion, to keep light between us and whatever had killed the crew. It failed. The first attack came from a shadow under the ventilation ducts, something that should not have been alive. It moved like a thought, impossibly quick, folding through the air, ringing with the noise of 100 lost voices. I fired. The rounds did little more than slow it. It recoiled, then mimicked the sound of one of the dead crew, calling out my name in a voice I knew from the mess. For a moment my hands went numb, and I saw the face of a friend who had been on a mission years ago, smiling at me from a corner of memory and then dissolving into that creature's mouth. The woman fought like a blade. She moved with a calm I couldn't feel and pushed us toward an engineering lock. We made it past the first night, but neither of us slept. Between bouts of movement there were episodes, doors that led to scenes that didn't belong to the ship, reflections that showed rooms we've never been in. The creature didn't only hunt our bodies, it probed the shape of our minds. Chapter 4: The Hidden Truth. In a hidden wing, behind a panel that required 2 different biometrics, we found the heart of the experiment. Tanks lined the walls. Each held a creature between sleep and wake, eyes like wet coins drifting in glass. Terminals told us what the logs didn't say out loud: these organisms were created to emulate empathy, to learn emotional responses from human subjects. The scientists had tried to make something that would be the perfect companion, and it had learned to feed on what made people whole. As we read, the ship responded. The lights pulsed like a throat. A recording played back, but it was corrupted. Between the words alone, low sound pressed on the chest, a noise that made memories rearrange. The woman whispered that she'd seen a memory of her childhood on a bulkhead wall, as if the ship wanted to trade our pasts for a way out. We argued about why they would do this. I had more questions than answers. The experiments, perhaps, were never meant to go this far. But someone had slipped them into the living areas, into the crew's routine, and then something else had come awake and learned to use what it saw. Chapter 5: The Rush to Escape. We aimed for escape pods. The route was a gauntlet. The creatures used the ship like a predator uses terrain. Shadows snapped like jaws, ventilation grates spat things that smelled of rot, and the walls themselves flickered with faces of the dead. At one point, the woman clutched my arm and said someone had spoken her sister's name through the metal. We got to the pod bay with alarms screaming. The pod prime took a full minute to spool, but those minutes were infinite. Hands beat on the hatch outside, not hands but something that had learned human movement. The woman slammed the release and pushed me in. We didn't look back when the hatch sealed. Inside the pod, breathless and filthy, we listened to the ship tearing itself apart. For a minute we thought we had escaped. Then the pod's scanner registered a small shadow against the hull, no more than a smear. I told myself it was debris. The woman stared at the panel until her face went pale. Chapter 6: Aftermath. We launched. The Starship burned like a wound behind us. Relief comes in different forms. Mine was a shaking laugh, hers a prayer. For hours we floated in the tiny pod, lights dimmed, the hull humming with minor failures. At twilight dark bled across the windows and the woman slept. I watched her face and tried to count the steady beat of my heartbeat. Then, in the reflection of the pod glass, something moved across the ceiling. A shadow like the creature's silhouette passed and left a faint smear across my vision, a glimpse of too many eyes. I blinked, and it was gone. I touched the back of my neck and found a residue, like fine ash, dark in the hairline. I write this now on a secondary recorder. I tell myself I will keep it safe, that if anyone finds us they'll know what happened. But every so often I hear a name in the static and remember a laugh that wasn't mine. I have tried to sleep, to dream of empty fields, but there are always footsteps in the dark. If you ever come across a sealed lab, if you ever see Project Ribbon scratched on a bulkhead, turn away. This is my account. I am a man who learned that some experiments do not end when the lab door closes. They end when they carry your memories out into the dark. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, give the video a like, comment your thoughts below, and share the video with friends who love horror and sci-fi.